presented by YTV Shows with me, your host, Swecha Sangrola. On this show, where we create a platform to think and talk about foreign policy from a holistic perspective. Foreign policy is that show where we as individuals can create a voice and cause an impact on the decisions that affect us and the world. On today's episode, we discuss the journey of Nepalese foreign policy, its strengths and its weaknesses. We as a country have held the ideals of democracy, peace, prosperity, sovereignty, independence and integrity at the heart of our foreign policy. Turn the pages of the Interim Constitution of Nepal 2007 and under Article 35, you can see it written that Nepal as a state shall pursue the foreign policy based on the United Nations Charter, non-alignment, principles of Panchashil, international law and norms of world peace. Let me take this opportunity to introduce you to our guest for today, Dr. Khadga K.C, Associate Professor at Tribhuvan University and Coordinator at the Masters in International Relations and Diplomacy program. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Before beginning with our subject matter, I would like you to tell us briefly about yourself and the Masters in International Relations and Diplomacy program. It sounds very new to me. Can you tell me briefly about that?
Well, as you introduced myself, that I'm an associate professor at Central Department of Political Science, Kirtipur, TU, and I did my PhD from Japan. And recently, university has assigned me as a coordinator of the recently introduced program, International Relations and Diplomacy. And this is the first ever program TU has launched so far in this country, and not only within the TU, even other private schools, universities around this country has not yet introduced this program. So which is quite needed for the development and production of human resources needed for the country's foreign policy. So we have just started about a couple of months ago. And
in 2014?
Yeah, 14 February, and the classes are running well. And there are so many former diplomats for my masters, and then foreign ambassadors. They are involving as a faculty, and some young faculties are also there. Mm-hmm. So we are trying our level best to make it quite like sellable graduates in future.
Would it be right to say that before this course was launched, there wasn't enough specialized area of study with regard to international relation and diplomacy? Why was the need felt for this separate program?
Well, so far we don't have this program, such program in
any other university.
Yeah, any other university in the country, and of course with TU. TU is a state-funded and one of the largest higher education institution, which has almost 90+% of country's human resources producing by TU. So it has been realized right from maybe 1970s of a separate discipline, separate department of IR, but things have not gone positively, or maybe there might be so many other hindrances, so that university authority and academician and those who involved in the political science areas, they were trying to introduce this program as a separate discipline. However, it could not because of some multiple other reasons. But last couple of years, Central Department of Political Science, Kirtipur, TU, has initiate this program and develop the course and then approved by the university, because we are the small state between the large two giant neighbors, and our main strength of foreign existence, the survival, can also be promoted through very competent diplomat and foreign policy expert to make balance between the neighbors and as well as the international community, so that it is quite needed right from the second 1950s to produce graduate in IR, but eventually it has been done a couple of months ago. So it was needed quite earlier, but it could not be materialized. But at the last, eventually it has been started. So that I think is quite good initiative.
Before beginning the interaction program, I would like to extend best wishes to your program on behalf of the TV. Very well said that we need more graduates in this field. Yeah. The theme for the program today is a matter of your specialization. You're specialized in international diplomacy and general aspects of foreign policy. I would like to ask you a question about how the journey of Nepalese foreign policy has been so far. Do you see it going in the right path? Is it headed the right way?
Well, thank you for your good wishes to our programs, and we'll try our level best to make it productive courses in future. Well, the journey of foreign policy in this country is quite long, and because the country, our country is, we do always feel pride that we never colonize, and that decolonization, the countries which were decolonized by the foreign colonial power, European colonial power, right from the 18th century in Latin America to Asia in 19th, 20th century, the history of foreign policy of those part of the world and ours is quite different. So that journey is quite long. We have come across and right from our Lichivi era, when King Angsubarma started our relations with northern neighbors, getting married his own daughters, Bhikuti, to Tibetan prince, and of course in south, right from the 2,500 years ago, when there was a king in Lumbini, the father of Gautam Buddha. So we do have a very long history. This country is one of the oldest civilization, and is a nation state. Of course, there might be some discourse. The history of nation state building of this country is quite short, but at least as a country. And when you do have a country that has always a foreign policy, so it might be quite like ups and downs is there during the Lichivi Kal, and even before Kiranat Kal and Malla Kal. Of course, during the Malla Kal, our foreign policies, Malla kings were trying to keep balanced relations with the British East Indian authority in Delhi or Calcutta to keep maintain aggression from the Gurkhali kings.
Indeed, that was a tactic
tactical, strategical
to save our sovereignty. It's interesting
Yeah.
that you say that all those historical attempts that were made indeed played a part in leading us to believe, and it's a truth, that Nepal was never colonized. For that.
There might be several other regions because of that we could not, we should not have colonized by the British colonial power. So there might be so many other regions. However, one of the important reasons is that somehow our predecessors, our immediate rulers, they did have really kind of balanced foreign policy. On the one hand, of course, during the Ranas always tried to please the British Empire, British colonial power. Even by sending the troops in Lucknow in 1856, Jangal himself went to please the British to suppress the Lucknow Mutiny, and there are so many other attempts made for the first time in 1923. Nepal was recognized as sovereign state by the British East India Company during the time of Chandra Shamsher. 23. So after 1816, there are the kind of like a paradigm shift after 1816, Sugoli Sandhi, before Sugoli Sandhi and after Sugoli Sandhi. After Sugoli Sandhi to 1923, and since from 1923 to 1950, we can break the our relations with largely interacted with the southern border. North, of course, as I told you that during the Angsubarma's time, since then we do have kind of like relations with northern neighbors, and in between we did have a war also with Tibet, and we prevailed over Tibet quite a couple of times, and later at the end we had a treaty with Tibetan in 1846. So largely not because of having a strong military strength and economic strength. We did save this country because of our not that much smartest, but at least kind of like successful foreign policy in what we have to contend, in a sense, in my perspective.
So would it be fair to say then that those ancient rulers indeed had a skill of diplomacy and were dependent on most of those abilities to keep the sovereignty intact? I think this would be a very good example in modern day scenario, the kind of tactfulness with which the ancient rulers tried to preserve the national integrity and sovereignty. I'd like to lead this conversation to the modern day scenario.
Well, I think they were not that much like trained diplomat.
Indeed, not
yeah, we
trained.
couldn't expect
Yes.
that. Of course, in Europe, right from the 12th century, they did have university system, and people were trained in the university for diplomacy and international relations. But compared to those part of the world, we didn't have that much higher education system. But they did at least a kind of survival diplomacy to survive this country. They did try their level best to maintain balanced relation with our neighbors. I mean, there was a colonial era before 1950, and during that time, we cannot like acclaim and appreciate every attempts done by our like traditional rulers and then kings and maharajas. They did have maintain very balanced relationship for the sake of their regime protection, at least for in the name of protection of their regime from the internal threat, to cope up with internal threat or external aggression. They tried kind of like balance foreign policy for the survival of the country, and moreover for the continuity of their own regime, so that we can appreciate them in that sense. But we cannot say that they did really wonderful. There were so many lapses done by on our part as well, while dealing with the neighbors and then foreign powers during the Brahmanas, during the king's time, and even before that in Sugoli Treaty. So there were so many lapses happen.
You started with a very positive note, I must say. But in the modern era, however, sir, do you think survival diplomacy, it's believed that it's not enough, that there are more modern forms of diplomatic efforts, such as the concept of economic diplomacy, military diplomacy, all those are involved. Do you think Nepalese foreign policy has gotten beyond that traditional survival diplomacy? Have we done much in the other front?
Well, I do believe on your conviction. Of course, that is needed for the country as well. But things is first we need to survive. And then we should be stabilized, and then we seek something better compared to our neighbors. So in the context of this country, even today, well, as you talk about Crimea a while ago, still there are so many like threat might be addressed to survive the territorial integrity, independence and sovereignty of this country. Because while talking about foreign policy, you always should talk related with the national interest. There are two types of national interest. One is a vital national interest and the secondary one. While talking about vital national interest, to protect the country's sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence, and then the security of the citizen. This is the vital national interest. Of course, this is kind of like correlated with survival as well. And so far as you talk about economic diplomacy and all other modern discourses, that might be in the secondary one. When you have a threat, even in the primary one or vital national interest, then you cannot talk much about secondary one. First, you need to protect yourself, and then you will try to be a prosperous. So that we need to of course, in 21st century there might not be happen, hopefully, kind of like territorial aggression by the neighbors and then foreign powers, so that at least we are safe. This is kind of like just coincidentally, but psychologically and physically we need we cannot be a militarily strong state here, major power, strong power, because we are located, our geopolitics and geostrategic location is very sensitive. So that what we can do that, well, economic diplomacy to keep the house in order is the primary priority of this country. We should establish, we should make a stable democracy. We should make a democratic institution, and then functioning democratic institution, and afterwards, for that we need foreign aid or foreign support. With that we can transform our economic structure. And economic diplomacy comes after we survive, after we can maintain our very fundamental domestic orders. Yeah, of course we cannot wait for a long while. Keep talking about stability and stability. Even if we do have instability, we should try our level best to make to convince, to persuade, to request our foreign friendly countries and neighbors that we need to develop our country. We need to transform economically so that our peoples can be they can be more confident. They can be more confident, and because unless and until you cannot protect your citizen, yes. And you while talking about the diplomacy and then economic diplomacy and foreign policy, first you should keep your house in order. Because foreign policy is the extension of domestic policy.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I'd like to quote at this point what Hubert Humphrey said. Foreign policy is just domestic policy with a hat on.
Yeah.
So
unless and until you cannot keep house in order, yes. Then you cannot talk about beyond that. So first and foremost things we should keep house in order. That message can also interchangeably promote our national interest beyond the territory. So I think this might be correlated.
I have a question that is a little interesting in a sense that I have just mentioned that in the interim constitution of Nepal in Article 35, they have a very beautiful language that says Nepal shall pursue its foreign policy. They have everything in it. Yeah. Panchashil, they have United Nations Charter. So it seems like in document we've decided to comply our foreign policy with the most international, the most basic of international human rights notions, international law. However, in actions, our foreign policy has been termed as having a crisis of credibility, that we have not earned that somehow. What is your take on that, sir?
Well, that is absolutely right as well. Of course, we need to, as I told you before as well, we need to keep the house in order first. And democracy, for example, small country in Africa, if they do have kind of special mineral, and with the name of that mineral, their identity has been. We need to develop our own identity. Of course, we often say that this is the country of Sagarmatha and this is the country of Lord Buddha. That doesn't pay for a long while. Of course, even if we are we are encountering challenges that is some people around the world, they are saying that Buddha was born in India. We even cannot disseminate that simple information as well. So that what we have to do right away, that first, Nepal is a democratic country. Nepal is a stable, rule of law is there, and they do have a industrial capacity, they do have economic prosperity. We need to develop our identity first, and identity through democratic constitution, identity through development, identity through our per capita income. So that will be a really kind of message to promote our national interests in abroad. So in the meantime, of course, you need to have a competent diplomat. You need to have, this is a secondary in my perspective, because first, what kind of country is Nepal? That identity should be made. We have just $250 per capita income so far. Even if you might have $10,000 individually, but that doesn't make any sense. When your country is only below $250 per capita income, and the rest of the world see that you are the poorest of the poor. When you cannot develop yourself, socioeconomic status, and your stable identity, democratic identity, then that will give a message to the outside world that when you sit in the negotiation table to the foreign partners, and then you can have a kind of confidence to dialogue with them. You can develop your bargaining power. So to develop your bargaining power, first you should have kind of we do have a very wonderful history. We are independent sovereign state for a long while. So that we feel always pride. Message. So for disseminating a message, always our socioeconomic political stability is quite important. Then we need to have a consensus for approach or document in foreign policy. So far, we don't have that. Every political party, even the individual leaders of political party, they do have different foreign policy kind of Some of them are pro-Chinese, some of them are called as a pro-Indian, some of them might be a pro-American. So how can you say that they one with another, they do differ. Whenever somebody will become foreign minister and prime minister, they deal with the particular, for example, even for the pre-debate, even for some other so many issues, they do have lopsided ideas, and then that reflected in our foreign policy. That is really kind of like a frustrating situation. So to come back to relieve or to restore or to develop from this like adverse situation, first we need to give a message that Nepal has a democratic constitution, is a democratic country, and we are developing economically, we are progressing. That kind of message we need to disseminate to the outside world, and then we need to develop a policy back in home, and that policy should be disseminated through our competent diplomats, indeed.
Thank you so much for coming to our show and talking about the journey of Nepalese politics, foreign policy, and its strengths and weaknesses. Thank you so much, and all the best again for your program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here.
On today's episode, we have discussed how Nepalese foreign policy is constantly evolving and wanting to rid itself of the crisis of credibility. The question is, are common people relating to foreign policy? Are we using the tool of diplomacy to its fullest? Are we a potential international actor that will be taken seriously? These are the questions that need to be answered today for a better tomorrow. Thank you for watching us. We will be back next Saturday, 7:30 in the morning. Until then, have a great week. Namaste.
नमस्कार, म हुँ जयकान्त राउत। मैले 2067 सालमा जापानको चिबा विश्वविद्यालयबाट च्याउ विज्ञानमा पिएचडी गरी हाल मुलुकमा च्याउको समग्र विकास र विस्तारको लागि क्रियाशील रहेको छु। र यसै क्रममा हामीले यो अनलाइन कोर्सको विकास गरेका छौँ र यो कोर्सले च्याउमा अभिरुचि राख्ने जो कोहीलाई पनि आधारभूत ज्ञान र सिप प्रदान गर्नुको साथै एउटा सबल र सफल च्याउ व्यवसाय बन्न अभिप्रेरित गर्नेछ भन्ने हामीले आशा राखेका छौँ। र यस कोर्समा प्रस्तुत गरिने विषयवस्तुहरू यस प्रकार रहेका छन्: च्याउको सामान्य परिचय, च्याउको महत्त्व, विषालु च्याउ, च्याउ खेती प्रविधि, स्पनको सामान्य परिचय, कन्या च्याउको खेती प्रविधि, कन्या च्याउ उत्पादनको आर्थिक विश्लेषण, च्याउमा लाग्ने विभिन्न रोग तथा किराको व्यवस्थापन र च्याउ उत्पादन उपरान्तका प्रविधि।
सजिलोसिप.org मा यहाँहरू सबैलाई स्वागत छ। नेपालबाट अहिले रोजगारीको खोजीमा विदेशिनीको सङ्ख्यालाई हेर्ने हो भने दैनिक करिब 1200 देखि 1300 छ र नेपालमै अल्प रोजगार र बेरोजगारको तथ्याङ्कलाई खेलाउँदाखेरि 46% भन्दा बेसी देखिन्छ। यो सबै समस्याहरूको पछाडि हेर्ने हो भने एउटा प्रमुख समस्याको रूपमा देखिन्छ यी व्यक्तिहरूमा सिपको कमी, र त्यो सिप चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई कसरी प्रदान गर्ने भन्ने हामी नेपालमा भएका युवाहरूको एउटा मुख्य समस्याका रूपमा रहेको छ। र यही समस्यालाई समाधान गर्नका लागि एउटा सानो प्रयासका रूपमा हामीले सजिलोसिप.org भन्ने प्लेटफर्मलाई चाहिँ अगाडि ल्याएका छौँ। यस प्लेटफर्मले विभिन्न सिपमूलक तालिमहरू युवाहरूका लागि प्रदान गर्नेछ, जसका माध्यमबाट युवाहरू जसलाई चाहिँ सिपको खाँचो छ उहाँहरूले चाहिँ विभिन्न सिपहरू सिक्न सक्नुहुनेछ। जस्तो उदाहरणका लागि हामीले चाँडै नै सुरु गर्न गइरहेको आधारभूत च्याउ खेती, त्यस्तै गरी माइक्रोसफ्ट अफिस प्याकेजका विभिन्न प्रोडक्टहरू जस्तै माइक्रोसफ्ट वर्ड, एक्सेल, पावर पोइन्ट कसरी चलाउने भन्ने कुराहरू, यस्ता कुराहरू चाहिँ हामीले यस प्लेटफर्म मार्फत प्रदान गर्न खोजिरहेका छौँ। यो प्लेटफर्म चलाउन एकदमै सजिलो छ। साइन अप गर्ने, कोर्स खोज्ने, मन लागेको कोर्स छान्ने अनि पढ्न सुरु गर्ने। सजिलो सिप चलाउन निकै सजिलो छ। यो तपाईँले आफूलाई मन लागेको डिभाइसमा चलाउन सक्नुहुन्छ, चाहे त्यो कम्प्युटर होस्, चाहे त्यो ट्याब्लेट होस् या मोबाइल नै होस्। यस प्लेटफर्मबाट प्रदान गरिने तालिमहरू नेपाली भाषामा हुनेछन्, जसले गर्दाखेरि हामीले बुझ्न र सिक्न अझै सजिलो हुनेछ भन्ने हामीले विश्वास लिएका छौँ। सजिलो सिप मार्फत आधारभूत च्याउ खेतीका उत्कृष्ट 5 सहभागीलाई तालिम पश्चात आफ्नै च्याउ खेती सञ्चालन गर्नका लागि रु 10,000 प्रति व्यक्तिका दरले उपलब्ध समेत गराइनेछ। आउनुहोस्, सिक्ने अनि सिकाउने यो नयाँ माध्यममा हामी सँगै अगाडि बढौँ।